Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I'm Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach, and today we have a very interesting episode. We're going to be talking about how do we increase the power of our mind. We're going to be talking about meditation. We're going to be talking about focus. We're going to be talking and geeking out on some of the science behind it. It's going to be a mind expanding podcast. So I have two guests with me and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves because it gives you a chance to get familiar with their voice as well. So, Harshil?
I'm Harshil. I'm Ayush's co-founder at Level Supermind. And Level Supermind is an app that we've been building. We launched in September. And we're very excited on this journey. And that's where I'm spending half my time. So half my time is spent building Level Supermind. Half my time is spent building Shebang. So I'm running both of these companies right now. And I'm really excited about everything that one can unlock through the mind.
Amazing. When did you start Level Supermind?
It's, we've been building for about a year and a half before, but we released publicly in September.
Amazing.
So till now, we are fortunate that we got a good support of users. We got over 300,000 users using the app, and we keep getting feedback. So we're improving every day. But that's what we're doing with Level Supermind.
And leveling up is all about improving in any case. So
that's
absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right. And Ayush?
Hello, my name is Ayush. I'm also one of the co-founders of Harshil. I joined Level, we started Level 2 years back. I joined as an intern and then slowly was promoted or uplifted to co-founder.
Leveled up. We have to use the level
leveled
concept.
up.
Leveled up.
Leveled up to the co-founder level. I graduated from IIT Madras. During pandemic time, I had a lot of time, and during that time, the entire concept of self-growth and all that thing started interesting me, and very excited for today's podcast.
But why did you join the company? What was so exciting about this particular aspect of life that?
Sure. It was I was in my final semester and I had a lot of time because COVID was there, college was closed. And during that time, since I had a lot of time, I was getting bored. Getting bored is very important. So I was getting bored and I started studying how to materialize my ambition. I'm an ambitious person. So I was studying how to materialize my ambition. And I realized to build a very scalable business, I need to be scalable first. It's very important to be scalable first. And while I was breaking down how to be scalable first, I realized that for the mind, I need to do certain things. For the body, I need to do certain things. For the soul, I need to do certain things. And in that process, I went to Vipassana for 10 days. And once I was there, it was very new. I was not a pro meditator. Didn't know enough first in the magic of, let's just say, a stable mind. And while I was there, when I came out, somewhere my intuition hit that I saw his podcast with Ranveer Alabadia. He's also one of our co-founder. And I have a weird intuition which sometimes guide me, the heart guides. So I was like, no, I need to reach out to Harshil. And it was a very random Instagram text where I messaged him saying that I think we can work together and create a dent. And I have a feeling we can do it together. Can you mentor me to do that? And I sent my resume, and then he asked me. And within 2 days, I landed in this city, this beautiful city, Mumbai. It was a very weird time. COVID was there, everyone was dying. My parents was not. They
Happy
didn't.
with this happening.
They didn't know why would you go during a COVID time, and it started from there.
Podcasts can be very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Podcasts can be powerful and DMs can be powerful, right?
Yeah.
Instagram DMs, you have no idea the kind of stuff that actually works from there.
Yeah.
And I think from my end, I always say this, and I say this with utmost frankness, that nobody from IIT ever wrote to me. So for me, it was like, hey, somebody from IIT is writing to me. Interesting. Why don't you just come down? Let me send you the, let's figure out this flight ticket stuff, and why don't you just come down? And we hadn't really, started the company till then. We were just forming the base of what the product needs to be. And that's when Ayush came in and we said, okay, let's start, at least you start working as an intern in what we're starting to form. But very quickly, the ethic that he had and the detail orientation that he had. And I think that's what works between the two of us, is that I think between the three of us, actually, Ranveer and I are a bit more
Macro all
blue
over the
sky.
place.
Let's think as big as we can, and we're good with execution. And I'm not saying Ayush is not good with blue sky, but what he brings to us is really the detail of how to really get something really, really solid done. So there's this theory of the kind of shape that you are. You're either a triangle, or you're a square, or you're a circle, or you're a squiggle.
So you guys are squiggles.
So I'm more of a triangle.
You're a triangle.
Which is like look forward, look big, and focus on the bottom line, and really just try to open up avenues. And sometimes you're often a combination.
Correct.
So I think Ayush, according to me, is a great triangle square, because the square, along with being focused on what we can be and make the dent with,
The ambition
is also very analytical and is able to break things down so carefully. And they're typically the best people for process. So that is where I think our partnership, I thought, made a lot of sense. So very quickly we elevated him from intern to, it was a small company, so we said head of product to chief of operations to co-founder. So it was a pretty quick journey.
Whoosh.
Whoosh. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
But it was more than the elevation. I think it was just the clarity that as we spoke more and we spent more time together, and as we started realizing that we're reading a lot of the same things, while we're reading the same things, we're bringing in different perspectives on that same thing that we're reading, that this is going to be fun to build something together. And then the purpose started getting a bit stronger with respect to what we're trying to do with the product also.
And then how you all decided to choose into it. But let's talk about these aspects first, like meditation, focus, all these things that we were discussing before the show. So like when I say the word focus, right, this is something that I get asked all the time. So whenever I'm doing an Instagram live or the questions that come in for the podcast, it's all, how do I focus more? Where does focus come from? What are your thoughts on focus? This is open to both of you all. You can speak as and when.
How I understand focus, I think focus is a characteristic. You don't have to do it. It happens when your mind is still.
So what is focus?
Focus is the ability to be whatever you're doing, to be there and do it without thinking about future, past. Be there. Like, let's say if I'm focusing on listening to you, the degree of focus can reach to a level where if I'm saying the word light, the l and t, light, the time frame can be felt. It all is possible when your mind is still. It's not jumping to future. It's not thinking about past. If you see very carefully, the characteristic of mind is to either think about future or think about past. And with practice, you do nothing of both. And then whatever happens is magic. And that's what I think meditation is, one of the smartest tool to practice, to be in the present moment.
I was on a podcast yesterday and I was asked this question about, you keep saying be present, be present. What does be present mean? And I was saying exactly this. When you're in the past, you're only living from a place of sadness or worry because you're remembering events that have happened. And when you're in the future, you're only being creative. You're coming up with anxieties and fears, etc. So it's so interesting the way that you exist in these two time frames, but when you realize how to, and we talk about habits, to come back into the present, it makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The other thing, just taking off, and I love when Ayush uses the word meditation as a tool, because I think otherwise it's too over hyped as, either something too, spirituality is another domain, but I think I love the fact that we start looking at it as a tool. And a good tool with respect to focus is that, when you're sitting in the process of meditation, one of the things we recorded early on in the app is a series on focus. So it's a 7-part series on cultivating focus. And one of the tools that, within this meditation practice, we looked at saying that coming from the school of mindfulness, which is that when you're sitting still, you watch your mind go and then you bring it back, and then you watch your mind go and you bring it back. But the other thing that we added as a dimension is that when you catch your mind wandering, you actually give it a smile. So you're giving it a positive reinforcement saying, look, I've got you. And I'm kind of bringing you back at this moment. So the moment that your mind wanders is actually, gaming your mind to a moment of victory.
Correct.
That I've seen you wander. Look, don't worry. I mean, you can do what you want to do, but it's a moment of victory for me to then again bring you back to this moment. And then you go again and it's a moment of victory for me and you bring it back to this moment. And this smart tool is almost like cultivating a muscle for the mind, because the more we get into the practice of meditation, it is really about, cultivating muscle around your mind to be able to be in that present moment and to be more focused. So focus, present moment, I completely agree with you that it's very interrelated. Not straying into, yes, there's the past, there's the future, but there's also within this present moment where we are getting our mind distracted and really being more into the intention of what we're trying to focus on, which is what focus is about, really.
Correct. It is that what are you using focus for?
Yeah.
There's one aspect which is saying, I want to focus more.
Yeah.
But what are you using the focus for?
Yeah.
You can focus perfectly on all those distracting thoughts that come. There is also focus. That's where your attention is going, right? Technically. But it is where you're using that focus that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll give you an interesting habit that we had spoken about many years ago. You asked me what were one of my first few podcasts. I think this is one of the first few podcasts. It was that whenever you are working in a meeting, right, you get distracted by something else, catch yourself and put a tally mark on your page. So at the end of the meeting, you know how many times you were distracted in that meeting.
Amazing. What an idea.
Right? So just like your app talking about gamifying, this is something that probably, at some point you can use as a way of measuring how many times you got distracted in this meeting versus that meeting, and hence see how
it's
you
a great
improve.
idea. It's a great product idea, actually.
Yeah, sure.
This is exactly what it is. Like probably if you'll ever do a Pomodoro technique, this would be a great one to add into it.
Yeah.
So meditation, right? When we talk about meditation, everyone freaks out. And the first opening lines for everyone is, I can't meditate.
Yeah.
Right? And in your meditation as well, you'll discuss this in the first few sentences of it. Tell me about, why do people feel that they can't meditate? What is the deal with that?
I think, whatever we've spoken, and we do a lot of work with consumers. So, there's 2-3 reasons why we're doing this. We'll speak about the personal, but, let's dial away from the personal for a bit and let's talk about the world's practice of meditation. You have about 2.5% of the world's population who has a meditation practice. About 0.5% of the world's population which has a regular meditation practice.
Oh, it's that much of a difference, huh?
Yeah, so it's that much of a difference. And, that we see it as a huge kind of blue sky in the opportunity to really impact people's lives and minds. And, the work that you're doing and all of us together in this domain, the work that we're doing is actually we're trying to together build this dent. Now, coming back to, when we try to build this product, our focus is really to be curious with consumers to try and understand why, what is it that is really stopping them. And our focus at the start has been on younger people, really, because typically with
what
habits,
age group?
You look at people 10th to 12th standard upwards.
Okay, so that young.
Yeah. Because once the habit gets cultivated, then it kind of stays with you for life. I think most of us, if we, when we start going to the gym becomes, or even if it's not the gym per se.
The earlier we start, the better.
The earlier we start, the better, and it's a habit then stays through life. So we realize that that's the smartest way to make the impact. And then, of course, we are also building for the older audiences, and we see the older audiences spending a lot more time on the practices than the younger audiences. But we try to be curious about, what is it that is driving the younger audiences to not cultivate the practice. So 2 or 3 things come out. One is that it is perceived as religious or spiritual, and that word tends to kind of put people off. So that's the first thing. The second is that it's something my parents have said that I should do. So automatically I have, an affinity to not do it because it's something that my parents
It doesn't feel cool.
It doesn't feel cool. Yeah. So what we are really working on is to see how we can make meditation as cool as a six-pack. That is what we are focusing on. And we see the parallel between, 1950s, 60s with what Nike did with running. It was, just a sport with just, Olympic athletes who were seen running around a track field to it became ubiquitous. So our focus is, and as wherever we get the opportunity, wherever we only ask people saying, if you're calling us to speak, we request you bring a filled stadium. So we can speak about it, and we can speak about the benefits of this practice and why you can cultivate it. Do it through any other app, do it through wherever you want. We are not trying to sell you what we are, what we have.
Correct.
But the practice itself has significant benefits for your own life, which is what we're trying to do right now. So, coming back to your point, which is these 2 or 3 things are my parents have mentioned it once or twice. It's religious, it's spiritual, it's not cool. So that is what we are really trying to solve for over the next few years.
This is so interesting. So we have a NGO called the Light of Life Trust. So my mom had started this NGO, and it's about helping kids stay in school. So 8th standard onwards, because 8th standard is when most kids drop out of school in rural India. So from 8th standard onwards, they are taught not just the subjects, but they're taught meditation as well.
Wow.
So they're taught a chakra-based meditation, different from the mindfulness-based meditation. And it's so interesting seeing the children fall in love with the meditation, go home and teach it to their parents. Right? It is that for them especially, it is very new, right? Because they have not grown up hearing the word meditation.
Correct.
Right? Out here in urban India, we hear meditation quite loosely, but out there they didn't know what they were doing. So it's so interesting to see that difference between the urban
it's amazing work that you're doing, and your mom is doing, and similarly, that's the work we've been doing also in schools, in government schools and unaided schools, and the kind of the testimonials we get after the sessions, because mind बंद होके ध्यान होके इतना मजा आया कि वो फीलिंग मैं आपको एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर सकता हूँ, और मुझे और करना है इसको. And then we are now getting the principals of different schools reaching out to us saying that, why don't you guys
do this for us as well?
Because we do typically a 7-day introduction session inside the school. So the only thing we request from the school is that we request saying that give us an open space where all the kids can sit together. Our teams go in and they are basically explaining to them what is happening to the mind when you're in the process of meditation, why it's really a supercharger for your mind, making your mind sharper. And then we make them go into a meditation practice. So typically we have a good portable speaker setup that we take into the schools, and then we make them experience it.
Lovely.
And then that's typically a 7-day exercise that we're doing. So that is, and the feedback from the kids is brilliant. And that is one way to break the, to coming back to your point about that preconceived notion. The earlier it is, and the first experience of it can be magical, then it stays with you through life.
Right, because especially for kids, how do you describe the word bliss? Right, you can't describe the word bliss, and that technically that is what they're feeling in that moment, that shanti. They come with a lot of stress from home. How do they feel bliss? That is the word that is there.
Yeah.
Tell me something. You all did a lot of research around meditation. Let's geek out on some of the research. What is the stuff that you found out? Why meditation? Why is meditation good? What are the benefits?
From a scientific point of view, after, correct me if the date is wrong, after 2015, the amount of research paper that's coming is increasing at next level. Few of the things that we figured out, that the gray volume, literally the volume of the brain increases when you are in a regular practice of meditation. More brain cells, more performance. Simple. There is also this rewiring.
That's on the very, very long term.
So the grey matter changes.
The grey matter changes is, again, I think we should be careful not to over-promise it, because the grey matter changes are typically for, the yogi level people who are sitting and doing meditation for 3 to 5 years inside a cave. And over time, they would have done close to 27,000 hours of practice.
Correct.
That's where you're really seeing grey matter changes. But at the individual level, there's a lot of, and Ayush is right about the sudden influx of peer-reviewed papers with respect to the neuroscience of meditation. And I think you have people like Dr. Andrew Huberman, the stuff that you guys are doing. So many different people who are in the space, really now talking about it from a very scientific perspective. And what is clearly coming out is that within 1 week of a regular practice, which is typically a 15-minute practice, what people are seeing is significantly not significant, but what people are seeing is changes in levels of stress. So there is a reduction in levels of stress with 1 week of practice.
So 1 week of practice gives you a reduction in stress as one aspect of meditation.
Yeah. So this is again been looked at with EEG-led research. So it's not a hey, did you feel less stress? But are really the signals in your mind connected to the EEGs linking to that?
Correct.
So 1 week is that.
I went down that entire wormhole 5 years ago. I bought 2 EEG machines and used them at home to see what is my mind like while meditating, what is my mind like while working, what is my mind like while working out. It was
So
one full
interesting.
trip that I was on at that point.
And what were the results?
It was quite interesting because you can see a dramatic shift that suddenly takes place. Easier than EEGs. EEGs are a little painful to do because you need to get the
you need to get
contacts
it to
just
the-
right and all
exactly,
of that. Heart rate variability is much easier to
Correct.
measure.
Yeah.
And that also gives you a very interesting pre-meditation, during meditation, post-meditation reading of HRV. So that is something
Yeah.
that love to geek out on.
Yeah.
I think a company is coming to meet me for EEG just next week. So we're going to
Newfany.
Newfany.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we did some work with Newfany also. We used their headsets to test.
Did you see a difference in using the EEGs?
Yes. So we did see a difference in that, and we think we need to go now deeper with that work. Because again, some of this work with scientific credibility is that we still don't feel we have the
Correct.
credentials to do a peer-reviewed scientific paper yet. So we're working on improving our ability to do that. But what we rely back on is a lot of the research which is already there. So 1 week is around the reduction in stress.
Right.
Broadly saying trends with 2 weeks of 15 minutes of regular practice, you're seeing increase in levels of focus. So that is that. And then over 5 years, people are starting to see with a regular practice about 30 minutes over 5 years what people call altered traits. So the altered traits where your mind can really do your it's kind of
Altered traits or altered states?
altered traits.
Traits.
So so the altered traits in the sense of what you felt, what your capacity was, to increasing your capacity to do more. So that, and basically increasing the capacity of your mind to do more, or increasing the cognitive capability
Of your mind. Right.
So that's the 1 to 5, 1 week, 2 weeks, 5 years. So that's the variability, and then it's a scale. How much can we really go, and how much do we want to persevere, and how much do we want to turn that really into a habit.
Correct.
And make it part of our daily lives.
In fact, that's the thing, right? We think about all these new things that we do to our life as hard work, right? Like in my book, I talk about this. We talk about the desire for change and the fear of change. So I want the benefit of the meditation and the changes in my traits, etc. But I can't take out 1 hour of my life to do this. I can't take out this much time to do this. So how do you go past that barrier?
I think there's I would look at it in 2 ways. One is, it's always good, I think, when you look at the longer term picture, because that often kind of games your mind to say, look, that is what I'm going for. So if I'm going to have a fit body and I know that by doing this for 15 minutes a day, that is visible difference that I'm going to see, then that's always good to kind of go back to. The other thing that I think helps is making small commitments to yourself. So with respect to habits, one of the things we discovered when we were dealing with consumers is that we understood that most people said, I will stick to a habit if I commit to myself. And that's why after the first meditation that's completed on the app, we ask you to commit to yourself for 3 days, 5 days or 7 days. And then there's a whole bunch of notifications and reminders that come to you saying that, look, you committed
Boss,
to yourself.
you committed
to yourself. It's like Salman Khan's dialogue, right? एक बार मैंने commitment कर दिया तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Lovely.
So it's a bit like that. So I think habits are, bit of between the long term and really taking small steps towards that long term, and not making too many large commitments. Like, I'm not going to sit and meditate 60 minutes tomorrow, but let me start with, let me start with 5 minutes. We've got that also on the app because we saw that users were saying, look, 15 minutes a bit overwhelming. So we've got a 21-day series for 5 minutes. Then we have an introduction series for roughly between 12 to 15 minutes for 7 days. So that eases people into the habit. And once you've eased into the habit, I believe, and when you spoke about that, how do you get people to feel bliss? I think that's the inbuilt advantage of a practice of meditation, is that the moment you spend those 15 days or 21 days, you will feel inside of you, a resonance which will say that, look, I want to come back to it. So that is, I think, a good kind of mix of how all of this comes together.
Very interesting.
There's one more thing that we need to discuss, I think, is something which I call spiritual peer pressure. The more I'm reading, the more I'm understanding, maybe it's not about quantity.
It's quality.
It's quality. But to
Spiritual peer pressure.
reach that state, start with quantity. So what I was saying, this thing that first understand, be empathetic towards yourself. It might not be the easiest. It's not like eating a junk food, right? We are rewiring the animal brain. We are rebooting the androids in our brain somewhere down the line. So it's not going, if it's easy, everyone would be doing, not 2%. So first there's that empathy, that love towards the practice and towards self, that acceptance needs to be there. Second, down the line you have to do it. It needs to be done, needs to be inside you.
You need to put it in action yourself.
Yeah, you need to. All these things will help you, but make peace within, you need to sit.
How did you all decide on this particular format of meditation?
So we are doing a fairly wide variety, because what we see also with the practice of meditation is that each person has their own. So as we're building the product, our goal is to ultimately fit the right style of meditation with the right person. Because for some people, the mindfulness approach really works. For some people, visualization really works. For some people, it's the chanting or the mantra-based meditation that really works. But within each, we are trying to do deep work to make that meditation relevant such that it can be catered to be built into a habit.
Correct.
So, the introduction series that we have around mindfulness is a 7-day series which really takes you through different tools and techniques of mindfulness. It's really like a summary of all the tools and techniques of mindfulness in terms of, really skilling your mind to be in that moment. Similarly, with mantra-based meditation, what we've noticed in the the meditation practices available outside is that when people attach to a mantra-based meditation, they don't really connect with it because they don't connect with the meaning of the mantra. And any mantra-based meditation is really about connecting the meaning of the mantra.
Correct.
So, let's say that we pick up a mantra and then we are explaining what that mantra is doing to you, or really what's the meaning of that mantra. So, is the mantra, if I take, for example, and
bringing the mindfulness into the mantra, almost.
Yes. One is the mindfulness and second is the connect. So if I can illustrate with an example, and we are working right now on across a variety of mantras across religions.
Lovely.
Because, we believe that is again the opportunity, so for example...
Not every religion has a mantra. That's the thing. It's so interesting, but it's been lost across time.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, we were consulting with a master who said that, how in Hinduism you have Om. And he was speaking to an audience in the Middle East, and he said to them, you will not chant Om, you chant Al.
Correct.
Now, what we're trying to do is really increase the connectivity with the mantra, with the audience. So let's take, for example, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which is basically the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Correct.
Now, over 7 days, what we're doing in that is that we are basically... the whole ethos of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is you're doing 2 parts. One is, Krishna loves butter. So you're really pushing your impurities to the top and, churning that butter to the top, saying, Krishna, come and eat that butter now. So that's one part of, getting connected to the mantra. The second meaning of Hare Krishna is the come Krishna. So it's like, come to me. Whether you believe in Krishna, whether you believe in, whichever entity you believe in,
correct,
come to me and find divinity come rest in me. So that is the other part of, and then you do a bit of chanting and, reflecting on that chanting. So the moment we take people through the journey of the mantra, what that mantra really means and what that mantra is doing to you, then you can stay in a mantra meditation practice as you go along. So on the mindfulness side, what are the different tools? What are the different skills? The smiling tool that I spoke about, which is that as your mind wanders, you catch that wandering thought with a smile.
Compassion and bring it back.
Compassion and bring it back. Or, whether it is with respect to this mantra-based meditation. And then visualization is a whole new world.
Correct.
Because visualization, opens up a lot of possibilities. We've got a great coach on the app, Saloni Suri. So she's done a bunch of really good visualizations with respect to, how you see your parents appearing in front of you, how you see your family and friends appearing, and they're putting things into a goblet and then you drink that goblet. So all the good thoughts of
coming into you.
Yeah, or like, then within visualization also, it's, the pranic healing school is really focused on visualization. So there's what we're trying to derive is from the best schools.
Correct.
And how do we then make the content more relevant, modern? How do we break it down really into aspects and then cater to the audience such that they can transform it into a habit for themselves? That's what really we are focusing on. And then there is we also believe that meditation is not the only way, because you need for yourself to really level up and transform, you need a good mind, you need to nourish yourself with good food, you need good sleep, you need good thoughts. So all of that we're trying to put together in a single package. So we've got, and of course you need to nourish your body as well with the workouts.
We need to talk about the food part for sure, because what you feed your brain is not just your thoughts, but actual food that goes into it.
Yeah.
I want to touch upon the meditation bit. I want to give my 2 cents on this. So the beauty of this is that you can pick and choose. The way that I do it is I pick and choose the meditation for the task that I have at hand. So if I'm doing a meditation for, say, full moon meditation, right, where you're planning for the next lunar cycle, what it is that you're going to be doing, etc. Whether you believe in it or not, it's just a nice time frame that you use.
Correct.
So at that point of time, I use visualization because I want to visualize what's going to happen in the next month.
Yes.
Right. If I'm in a car, right, I will listen to a Prem Chalisa, or I would listen to like a Om Namah Shivaya or the Krishna Maha Mantra, to get me in the zone for where I'm going or what I'm about to do. So if it's an empathy-based thing that I'm going to do, I'll listen to a different one. If it's a target-oriented based one, I'll listen to a different one. And I'm Parsi, so I have nothing to do with religion, right? It is just the way that your body and your mind feels on these particular meditations. In the same way, I use a mindfulness meditation when I want to focus on a particular task at that point of time, right? So I use these different forms of meditation at different times. And my main practice of meditation is the chakra-based meditation. So it is across the board that I am free-flowing, depending on what I want to use the meditation for. So like you said, it's a tool. And it's amazing to have a variety of tools in your basket. Otherwise, everything looks like a nail to you. You know the adage, right? If you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But if you have a variety of these, you can pick, choose, and do what you want with them.
No, so interesting that you spoke about the, time. So, for example, we have a pre-exam meditation. And then we have before an important task.
Correct.
And then often, sometimes what you're starting to do is you're starting to combine different practices in that one meditation, just to be able to bring your mind back to the center.
Correct.
So that's the fun part of building this and putting it really together, so that no matter what the practice, no matter what the the moment, you have something to do.
And it's your mind, right? Like, what do you actually like connecting with? Many people are social people. They like connecting with a social environment, right? So you have lots of these bhajans that have been sung in public. So you hear multiple voices. Right. So, for example, do you all read Ramdas?
Yeah.
So, Ramdas, brilliant, right? So, in one of Ramdas's audio thing, at the end, there is one full 20-minute Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram chant, where everyone's Shri Ram, Jai Ram chanting. And it just, because everyone's singing it, you actually get into harmony with everyone singing. So, it's a beautiful, different approach to the same kind of mantra bhajan that you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think, at the end of it, all of it is coming down to how can we help the maximum number of people use themselves as an instrument to deliver the larger good, the best of themselves, each individual acting in their highest identity to deliver the work that they are supposed to deliver.
Correct.
Which is ultimately, the goal of all of this.
Yeah.
Each one at the highest level of where they are supposed to be at.
So you were talking to me about this before the podcast. I'll give a little preamble and then you can continue. So you listen to Osho in one of his talks. He talks about how when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of wisdom, basically they became intellectual. They started working from their mind, which is where all the hell started, right? And which is where they got trapped in this particular world. It's a very interesting theory. Do listen to that video at some point of time. You were talking about this as well, right? You were talking about a big change happened for you when you stopped thinking only from the mind and started thinking from the heart. Can you please tell me a little bit about that?
Where I come from, logic is given a lot of weightage.
IIT.
Wherever, like since bachpan. I think I was conditioned that logic is the way life works. If it can't be explained, means it's not true. And I was a hardcore logic person. I'm still am, but it's a tool now rather than my entire reality. What I realized, things are simple and needs to be simple. And in the process, we started reading, exploring myself, all the thing. And in towards the end, it's all how easy is it to listen. Effectively, if you can listen to your heart, it will guide you to the right direction.
What does listening to your heart feel like or sound like?
Very interesting question. I had a similar question. So let's say there are two voices inside us. The voice of a brain and the voice of the heart. The characteristic difference between the voice of a heart and the brain is, heart is very simple. It doesn't change. And there's a silence after that. The voice of the brain is analytical and changes with new information.
So the voice of the heart is non-debating, for example.
Non-debating, very calming. It might be illogical, but it is.
It might not make sense right now.
It might not make sense. And sometimes, because of all the distraction, we are not able to listen to the heart. But heart is so powerful, it starts communicating to you through gut feeling, through intuition. But it communicates. There is that voice that comes in. And we should respect that. Because please understand, the working memory, all that thing is very small part of our brain. There's so many things that's inside. We should not even
that we haven't even begun to understand.
Yeah, and that's a big thing inside. And you would have noticed that all the cliche knowledge, wake up on time, be kind to other people, it's there in the market. But it's not unlocked inside me. I know it, but I can't do it. Right? It happens. So effectively, all these meditation, please practice, please nourish the brain, please do the workout, please nourish everything, because it's very important for that cliche knowledge to become your reality. The integration of that, all the cliche knowledge, be good to people, help others, all that thing, you become a better sponge. It gets unlocked. And you will be like, I knew this. But now you will have
you'll feel it.
You feel it. And then you're like, I knew it. And then you'll smile. Right? And that I think that's life.
So give me an example of when you listen to your heart and not the mind, or tell me a story about this exploration that you had.
Yesterday, let's say. Yesterday, we have Mondays off in office because we don't believe in. So I'm very, I want my me time. I'm a person who needs time to recharge. And one of my friends was reaching out. Earlier, let's just say some time back, I'd be like, the entire week will be heavy. I need to recharge myself. It's not logical. Can't be there for one person all the time. And logic will find many reasons not to do what you don't want to do. And then yesterday itself, there was that, ठीक है कर लेना यार, क्या जाता है? Just do it. It's fine. What will happen? And there was no if else. There was a silence. But the brain, 1,000 reasons not to do, 1,000 reasons to do. That one line, just do it. Give time, help. that all these things, once you start following your heart more fearlessly, I think things become simpler. It's not very hard. That's my observation of what I am seeing.
So, do you also have this experience of, listening to your heart instead of the mind? What has been your thoughts and experience on this?
Before this, when we were outside, you mentioned one thing which is about, and maybe we'll touch upon this, but you mentioned for ayahuasca, you need to be able to cultivate the right process to be able to receive.
Correct.
So I think with respect to listening to your heart versus listening to your mind also, it's really about cultivating yourself to receive. For me, yes, Ayush gave an example of within daily life. For me, there was this one kind of aha moment where the heart superseded the mind. It was a workshop that I was doing with my teams. And, it was a 2-day workshop run by my coach, Saloni, who I spoke about, who's also on the app.
Correct.
Recorded her meditations. But the first day of the workshop was really a lot about self-discovery, knowing yourself. What happens typically, and I'm just trying to correlate it to that environment that you're talking about, which is, cultivating that environment. So what is happening to the first day was we were cultivating this environment where we were stilling everything and we were shutting everything out, and we were really going into the practice of knowing ourselves. So, my orientation is more towards people pleasing. My fear confrontation is a bit lower than most people. So really looking into specific tools to uncover yourself and going into things like what can I delegate, what can I tolerate, what should I really focus on, what's my long-term vision. So the moment you start doing those things to yourself, and again bringing back this topic or this idea of churning, you're churning yourself, you're basically creating an inner environment for success. When I was doing that workshop with her, it was over 5 years ago. And I was dealing with a problem at that point in time because I was 5 years into a journey where I needed to smoke a joint to go to sleep every night. And I was stuck. And 2 years out of the last 2 years out of those 5 years, I was using the mind. I would wake up every morning. I would Google how to get rid of a drug habit. I would Google negative effects of hash on the mind. I would read those papers, and then night I had it in my hand. So, I wasn't able to get out of that habit. Then that day, because that day we had spent on really cultivating ourselves, I felt courageous enough because I hadn't spoken to anybody till then that this is a problem I'm dealing with. It's typically when you have a drug.
Saloni didn't know about this at that point of time.
She didn't know about it. Because it's an embarrassing habit. It's not something that
you want to publicly talk about necessarily.
Yeah, and you can't talk. Like, for example, I couldn't talk to my parents about it because
Thappad you would have gotten.
Thappad, and also I was ashamed.
Correct.
There's an element of, I think some of the things that we can't talk to people about are also actually some of the things we're inherently ashamed of. So
it's the stuff that we need to talk to people about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then I, opened up to her saying, this is the problem that I'm facing. And the words she said to me resonated, coming back to the topic of mind versus heart, resonated straight in the heart. Because what she said to me is, look, really what's happening to you is that you are constantly getting high because you're not actually high on your own life. So for different people, the line may hit differently or the line may be different, but that one hit straight to me in my heart. And there was no debate on that. There was no, to his point about there is no right wrong in that. There was no hey, no, actually I'm doing so many things. I'm building so many things. How can you say such a thing to me? There was none of that. That was no, this is absolutely true. That was when my journey with meditation began. So that night she gave me a meditation, and I think somewhere there was as I started reading, I started discovering that thought which was a conscious thought which she had said to me and which had jolted me. Again, that's where the connection between the heart and the mind, because ultimately the heart experiences it but sends it back to the mind. And that meditation, I think, helped me then cultivate it into a subconscious.
Nice.
So, the thoughts which are sitting, which are our pure thoughts, then permeate into our subconscious. And that was the last night, I didn't have a joint that night, but that was my last joint. The joint I had before that was my last joint.
Correct.
So there was no joint after that. I quit cold turkey. I started.
You just realized you didn't need it anymore. It wasn't serving a purpose in your life.
It wasn't serving a purpose in my life. And that habit switch, the overnight habit switch, I think often the thing with habits is that, if you can cultivate the need or the real core need for the habit for yourself,
Correct.
Then that habit finds its way to you. And that's, that is that long-term anchor that we spoke about earlier as well.
Absolutely. Like I keep talking about this when it comes to bad habits, right? We think about bad habits and good habits. But bad habits were serving a purpose at one point of time in your life, right? It was giving you that high that wasn't there from life. It was serving some form of purpose till you realize that this purpose does not need it anymore.
Yeah.
Right? You must have started smoking for some reason.
Yeah.
So it was okay at that point of time. It was serving a purpose. But then once it stops serving a purpose, learning how to let go of it is where the key happens. And when that penny drop moment happens, you realize, okay, I can let go of this. I can probably replace it with something else that I need. In your case, meditation. Right? And then you suddenly realize that there's a difference in the way that the habit changes.
Yeah.
All right, so this was the first part of our discussion about understanding the mind. We get into a very interesting conversation in part 2, where we share a lot about our personal journeys. So make sure that you listen to part 2 coming up next.